Welcome everyone to our new session with creatives all over the world. This is a series of interviews with artists, designers, illustrators, and everyone who is connected with creativity. And today our guest is Keisha. She is an art teacher and an artist, and she's a really amazing person. If you're not subscribed to Instagram, you're really very welcome because she has so much energy, so much passion to art and teaches others how to create. And today we will talk with her about the magic of teaching, how to use different interesting sculpture techniques, and what is art, how it can be used like a tool for self-expression. And also I'm going to ask Keisha about her art shows and the programs that she makes for teaching children and adults, and really very curious to know more about her artistic journey. So we will start in a few seconds, and if you want to get all the highlights from this interview, you're very welcome to subscribe to the newsletter. Link is in my bio. And to write them in the comments, and we will be happy to answer all your questions about art and creativity. Hi!
Yeah, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Good. Everything's great. It's a Friday. It's kind of gloomy, but you know what? It's gonna be a great day.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yesterday I was scrolling through Instagram. You're such an energetic personality, and
Thank you.
yeah, I'm really very curious to know more about your artistic journey. And let's start from the beginning. How your life is connected with art? What was at the beginning of your journey?
Yes. So actually, my journey through art actually starts from birth. A little backstory about me. The day that I was born, I had a neonatal stroke. And at the time, we didn't know what was going on, what was happening. And, as I started getting older and when I was little, my mom noticed that like I wasn't developing like everyone else. Like, for example, like communicating and talking. I had a speech impediment too on top of that. So just learning to express myself was very challenging. And my mom noticed at a very, very early age that I was taking things and just like building things. Like my mom has like shared this story multiple times that like before I could talk, I was drawing. And one way that I communicated was like drawing pictures. So like for example, if I needed anything, I would draw like milk and cookies or whatever. And my mom was an educator too as well. And as I got into school, I was struggling a lot academically. I was very behind with my peers. And, I struggled a lot with reading, writing, while everybody was able to move on. I was struggling, honestly, by a couple grade levels behind. And when I was in second grade, my mom remembers this story when
Sorry, there's no.
I was I went to her room crying. And it was at that moment where she decided to take action and we started going to the doctor or getting, one thing kind of led to the other, MRIs, CT scans, this and that. And we discovered that it was a stroke. Essentially, I had a brain lesion on the left side of my brain. And you can actually see it in my scans, which is crazy. I still have those scans from 30 years ago, and you can clearly see it. And as I got older, I always did my checkups and like it just never changed. And I was pretty much told that it was going to be something that I was going to have to deal with. And, going through school, when you kind of discover that, you had the stroke and it correlates with a learning disability, a learning delay, I was very aware that I had this going on and I was very embarrassed. I didn't like to speak out loud. I remember this moment in fourth grade where we will do this assignment called popcorn reading, and it's essentially where you just take turns reading, and the next person, will pick up right where you left off. And I just remember like counting the heads, counting the paragraphs, trying to like pronunciate. So like I didn't sound like a fool reading out loud. And I've had teachers, just a few teachers that have, called me out, that have embarrassed me. And I just remember that feeling in my gut, like I wasn't going to be successful in what I was learning. And it wasn't until, when I would go home, I will use art to kind of, create and express myself and things like that. And like my mom said, I would just like grab things out of the trash can. And her favorite thing that I made was taking a cardboard, the boxes that the trash bags come in. I took that box and I cut the top off. And my mom was always just kind of like, what is she doing? What is she making? And apparently I turned it into like under the sea, like oasis with like fishes and coral. And like I used string to make fishes like swing back and forth. And like that was back when I was like in fourth grade, third grade, So as I got older, I got into middle school, high school, and I was still struggling academically. I remember having my meetings with my teachers and just trying to figure out what was working, what was not working, accommodations, things like that to put in place for me to be successful. But one thing that I always shined in was my art classes. I remember my middle school art teacher where he was a very interesting guy, but he was just so cultural and, wanted to give us the opportunity to like, just kind of like learn about everything and give us the opportunity to create with everything. And I will never forget him. He was such an inspiration and kind of got me into like thinking, okay, so like maybe I am good at art, And then when I got into high school, again, still struggling academically, I remember as a, how old was I? Like 15, 16, having to be pulled out of class in front of everyone to have like my tests read to me, get accommodations set up or whatever. And it was so embarrassing having to leave the class in front of everyone. But when I went to those art classes, my high school art teacher, Mr. Kalinsky, I was in his AP classes, and with him, he just gave me the freedom to create and explore. And I am forever grateful for that because he got me into plaster, sculptural material. And ever since then, like I incorporate it into my teaching and even in my own personal art. I do a lot of sculpture. I build a lot of large things. And just allowing me to create and express myself and just the relationships that I was able to get with my high school art teachers then. And then, continuing on to college, I honestly didn't think because, I was so far behind academically, I wasn't going to make it through college. I thought after, doing like my community courses and just kind of like my basics, that was going to be it. And, with the help and support of my friends and family, a lot of my family, I was able to apply to university. I got into art education, and it wasn't until I joined those classes where I really like transformed. I was very quiet, very shy in high school, and it wasn't until those college art courses that I took that I really kind of started becoming the person that I am today. Very, loud, expressive, and I'm the connections that I have from that class, the teachers and art teachers that I made, the friends that I made in that course. And, ever since joining that art education program at UNT, I felt like that was a pivot moment in my life as far as like really honing in on art education and advocating and sharing how not only art has benefited me, but to like showcase and share with others what you can, the power of art in creating can do. So that's kind of a long story, but it honestly, since birth art has been with me in different ways and others. And I'm grateful that I had a mom and parents and family that supported my, my journey through it. I remember my mom putting me in classes when I was really young, and at the time we couldn't afford it. But she put me in these classes and, provided me the supplies and the space to create. She never, took anything away from me. She just kind of let me be. And, she finally started to catch on like what I was doing and kind of notice, okay, well, maybe this is like her thing. She might be struggling with reading, but this is a way for her to kind of like, be herself and just essentially like be happy, because that was the only time, especially in school, that I really enjoyed learning. And I was able to make those connections that, I learned very visually and very hands on. So when I got to college, I was able to apply those methods into learning too as well. So like, for example, like having the pictures with my notes, or like drawing and things like that. And, or like creating, even like decorating notes, like that was very comforting for me, and be able to take away what I was learning as well. So, yeah, since since birth, I'll have to say.
Thank you so much for sharing. It was very interesting to learn about you. And I want to ask you, what did you feel when you created the time at the early ages? Because it definitely was something special for you, these moments with yourself and expressing yourself through art. Do you remember what were your emotions, your feelings that time? What art was for you?
Yeah. So again, I think the biggest thing was my middle school is kind of like when I had that aha moment. At the time, I wasn't aware of what was going on. I knew something was wrong with me. I knew I was different than everybody else. I wasn't learning and processing the same as everyone. And just that struggle of just trying to keep up. And specifically in those art classes where there were other people that had similar interests as me, I didn't know the extent of art making. I always thought that art was just kind of like painting and drawing, but the building and the constructing part is what I like. And when I was in my middle school classes, I was exposed to that, and was able to make friends that had similar interests as me. And I remember we had a middle school dance, and the woodshop class and the art classes kind of got together to build some of like the decorations. And man, like I remember making, like, it was an under the sea theme. I made this big old giant jellyfish. I made a dolphin. We made these giant painted fishes that just like kind of went up on the wall. And it was, again, just learning how to, turn something into a three-dimensional thing, and then working with others too as well. And then in high school too, um, taking those high school art classes with my teacher, I think the biggest thing was just, he never said no to me. And if I ever had an idea that like necessarily he didn't like, it was always kind of like communicating to me like, okay, well, how can we approach this? How can we, build this, whatever. And it was always just, very constructive uh, um, feedback on how I can accomplish these things, and be really successful and like use all my materials. There was a moment when I was in fourth grade or fifth grade, I can't remember. But, we had a lot of like drawing contests throughout the school year. And I would always submit my stuff to those contests. And I always won like first place or second place. Like I always got like high achieving awards. And again, I always knew that this was kind of like my thing, but I just didn't know how to what could you do with art at the time, so I always felt like I had to be better at my academics than art making, because it was the academics was what's gonna help me grow and lead me to those careers that I wanted to be or whatever. So it was a long journey, kind of discovering and understanding that side of me. But again, if it wasn't for my art educators, like I don't know honestly where I would be. I thought I wanted to go to school for engineering, and so that was one thing about my stroke. So with the brain bleed happening on one side of the brain, the other side of my brain really developed over time. So like even though I was struggling academically with like reading, writing, comprehending, processing, I was amazing at math and science. I was in very high advanced calculus class, AP science courses, and I thought I wanted to do engineering. And I honestly probably would have made more money and things like that. But art was just more my passion. And I'm still able to add those like the math and science aspect into my personal art when it comes to like building, constructing larger items. So yeah.
And how did you start teaching others? Did you start to teach children or adults first? How do you decide that, okay, now I'm going to teach other people?
Yeah. So, my high school art teacher is probably the reason why I'm an art educator. Like I said, I wanted to go to school for engineering. I wanted to like build buildings and bridges. And, my first year of college was actually engineering courses. And I was the only girl in the class, and I was really good at it. And I just remember going back to the conversation I had with my high school art teacher. Like I told him, like I was like, I'm going to go to community college first and just see. I want to do engineering. And he goes, no, watch it. You're going to be a high school art teacher. And he always made the joke that like when he retires, I was going to take over his position. And he was like, I need somebody good to kind of step in and take over when I'm gone. And I always laughed about it because I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to be a teacher. No way. And sure enough, after my first year of doing engineering courses, I did take one ceramic course. And I just remember spending countless hours in that room and, building and doing the pottery wheel and still taking my engineering courses. But after that, I was kind of like, okay, well, what can I do with art? And then I kind of started looking into it. My mom was an educator. She was a kindergarten bilingual teacher for a very long time, and kind of just talking to her about everything. And that semester, I decided to change my degree into, or that year, I decided to change my degree into art education. And then ever since then, it was just like, okay, now I got my college courses out of the way. I went off to UNT, got into their program, and that's when things just like I hit the ground running, and I never looked back.
Was it scary to start to teach children?
Oh, yes. So that's one thing. When you graduate, especially from education, when you know you're going to be thrown in a classroom with kids, it's always kind of like, are the kids going to take away what you're doing? But that's the beautiful thing about art is that you're kind of allowing these kids to create and explore and learn in a different way, a more hands-on experience. And there's not that, level of anxiety of like tying it into their academics, because right now here in the States, academics are very important. And to be able to pass test and move on to the next grade level, and making sure that you are reading at grade level, math, all the things. And with art, you're just able to allow those kids a different way of learning, a different way of creating, expressing themselves, exploring. And one thing that I like to do at the beginning of the year is share my story, talk about my stroke and how I struggled in school academically. And the safe place that I had was the art room. And, there are some people that don't like art, which, I totally get it. It's fine. But just being that person or being that space for kids to come in and just have fun and create, get messy, because iPads and technology are very big right now, and we don't do that as much anymore. So allowing that, that time to get messy and do all these things and build things, and those aha moments where you're transforming something into, turning something flat into a three-dimensional, or learning how to draw those things. And over time, you do, the scaries do kind of go away. But I think that's the benefit and the beautiful thing about that it's art specific versus, if I was having to teach a math class, like, I don't know, like I will be struggling with teaching the math. So being in the art room is a different environment, a different world, honestly. And again, you'll be surprised with the kids that come in and will shock you, that will surprise you, that will come out of their shell. And, this is my 10th year teaching too, as well. So, and, being at the school I've been at the school for about 4 or 5 years now, and seeing the kids grow from each year has been amazing and a blessing. So,
Can you please tell us a little bit about this technique that you use, this sculpture projects, because it's not ceramics, it's something else?
are you talking about the white stuff that I use?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So with my own personal artwork, I've always done paper mache. And, if you don't do paper mache right, or if you don't get the mixture right with the glue in the water or whatever mixture you're using, like it can be very flimsy and fall apart over time. And I actually have a piece right here where it's like paper mache. It's called plaster strips, plaster craft. It's like paper mache, but like 2.0. And what I love about it is that it's still messy, it's fun, it has the same concepts of paper mache, but what's great about it is that it's sturdy. It's brick hard when it dries, and you can still. And what I like about it too is that it's white, so when you do paint on it, you have those bright, nice, vivid colors. And with paper mache, it just kind of like over time kind of disintegrates if you're not careful, or you don't like seal it correctly or have the right glue. And my high school teacher introduced me to this material. So on my own personal artwork, I kind of always made like things here and there. Like I remember in high school, I made a 7 foot, 6 or 7 foot tall giraffe. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I made it. And one of the ways that I was able to accomplish that was with a plaster. I started making it with paper mache, and as I was building up and as my structure started getting heavier, it was falling apart. So when he talked to me and showed me how to use plaster, I was able to kind of go back, reinforce it, and then have a standing sculpture giraffe after that. So it's really fun. It is unfortunately kind of pricey and expensive, but it is so much fun. The kids love using it. And I try to incorporate with most of my grade levels. And, again, I think the biggest thing is that it will last forever too, on top of that. So I love using plaster. I love it so much. It's my favorite material ever.
So it's different kind of paper or this.
It's not even paper. It's like a cheesecloth that's
Mm,
covered with like this like
mm.
plaster material. So when you get it wet, it the plaster has been like activated, and then you have like a certain amount of time to apply it, blend it out, smooth it out, build your sculpture, and then over time, over a couple of hours, it will start to dry out, and you can actually feel it drying out because it actually gets warm. I don't know how to explain that part, but like it's drying out and it gets hot and warm, and it's kind of like absorbing all that water and taking out all that moisture out. And in about 24 hours, it's completely sturdy. So yeah, it's kind of like I don't know how to like plaster cheesecloth. Yeah, and then like what's cool about it is that when you get it wet, like with paper's kind of stiff when you like fold it over. So like with these roundness parts, you're able to literally mold the plaster and just like blend it around the edges. So it's kind of like a fabric, a very thin fabric material covered in this plaster, to where you are able to mold it into like any round shape, or if you have any like tight crevices. Versus paper, you might have to like cut it smaller, put a few more layers on, where plaster, you just put one layer and you're done. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's my favorite thing.
Now I want to try it.
Yes.
So it's easy to find on Amazon or something like this, app
Yes.
stores.
Yes. 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 It's just more expensive than like paper mache. Paper mache, it's free with just paper, glue, and water, but
Mhm.
again, it's durable. It's durable afterwards.
Uh, can you also tell us a little bit about these art shows or some decoration that you prepare? What is that? How does it work? Because there are so many videos with really huge decorations.
Yes. So, for the people that don't know me, I'm a very theatrical theater Broadway girly. I love musicals. I've always wanted to like be on set and like perform, but I don't have the voice. I know I don't, nor do I have like um, the the presence of being in front of a large crowd. I probably can with smaller, but with that, with my love for theater and Broadway, came set designing. And I remember working in high school, working on like the theater sets there, making a few things. Like I said, when I was in middle school, we made decorations for events. And, my mom was a teacher too. So I remember going to my mom's school afterwards, because at the time I didn't have a car and the school was right next door. I would just walk over. Teachers will ask me to come and like make things for their classroom. And, over time, that's always kind of just been kind of like in the back in my mind that like I always knew I kind of like to create this vision for a space. And as I got into education, one of our main like teaks or like standards that we have to do throughout the year is showcase and having art shows, right, and displaying what the kids have been working on throughout the year. And it wasn't until about like 4 or 5 years ago where I started doing a theme tied into the artwork. I've always just kind of put like the stuff on display in a very artistic way, but like that was it. Like the parents came, checked out the stuff. I maybe had like one or two backdrops, but that was it. And when I moved into this school, I was like, you know what? Let me just kind of see. I kind of saw other art teachers kind of do the same thing where they were like incorporating themes and stuff like that. And the first year was kind of a struggle as far as like tying the actual artwork with like the decorations. And we had like a jungle Encanto, the Disney movie Encanto theme. And the way that I have it kind of set up is more like an experience and like storytelling, and to kind of showcase all the possibilities and like all the things we've been making and learning and applying that to some of the more larger displays. So over the last, I would say, 2 3 years, my art shows have gotten a lot bigger. And throughout the first half of the school year, we'll do a lot of like drawing, painting, and like I try to incorporate a sculpture in the first half of the school year. And when we come back from winter break, it's kind of like, okay, we're gonna wrap up the artwork and then we're gonna get into like the decorations for the show. And the kids love doing this because it's building large things. They're working together to put things together, to paint together. A lot of this is a lot of prep, having to get things set up and ready to go before the kids even come in order to accomplish a lot of these larger scale items. I partner a lot with some, faculty members at our school, like our cafeteria ladies. They get a lot of boxes. So they save those boxes for me, and that's how we make like our cardboard sculptures. I have a Facebook group page on for my school where I'll share all the things that the kids are making, and with that I'm able to post like, hey, we need plastic bags, hey, we need toothpicks, we need essentially, or toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, recycled materials, things like that. And building that community with my parents, I'm able to gain a lot of this stuff, and we'll use that to create these larger displays. So for example, when you're coming through the school, I have like different areas for different things. And so like when you're coming down the hallway, that's where all the larger decorations are at. And it's kind of like the storytelling, the experience, kind of seeing everything that we've learned. And then when you go to the end of the hallway is where our gym and cafeteria is at. And that's where all of their artwork is displayed. Every child has 2 works of art, and I have 750 kids. It's a lot. But every kid gets 2 pieces of artwork. So they usually have a painting and a sculpture on display. And then when you go into, down the hallway, I like to transform my room into like an art making space so that the kids are able to kind of teach their parents, oh, well, this is what we do for like cutting and gluing or like drawing or whatever, and try to have some sort of like art making material where the kids are able to teach their family members. So different, rooms for different spaces to showcase different things. And, with the art show, you're able to, advocate for all the things that we're doing, creating, and the parents love it. And it's kind of like the highlight, honestly, of the school year. I have a lot of parents that will come to me and saying, we cannot wait for the art show. I honestly think it's the biggest event of the school year. And I am very prideful of how my art shows have evolved. It's so much work, so much planning, a lot of kind of going back to the drawing board, preparation, and things like that. But to me, it's so worth it. I'm able to kind of get that theater aspect out of me, and kind of create, with my theater background, passion, with doing these themed art shows.
And these art shows, the program of these art shows, it can be bought by someone else, and I saw the link there in the link that through this art shows that there are different names of the art shows, and it's kind of a program that you can buy or not, or how does it work?
So I don't really like well, okay, so with my art shows, one of the things that we try to do is like obviously advocate for the arts, right? Like, everything that you're seeing is, you know, with the help and the support of essentially like budget, because art supplies are so expensive, especially when you have so many kids to account for. And one way that I kind of do to kind of like, advocate and kind of build my art program is selling frames. So there's a link on Amazon where it's like, so many frames for an X amount of dollars. And I'm able to buy those with my school and as, kind of sell them for a higher price to make something out of it. And the way that we kind of advertise it is like, by you buying a frame, you're supporting the art program for next year. And, my first year I did it, I really didn't make that much just because I was new. I was a new art teacher into the school and they really didn't have anything like that set up. So kind of to like build that part of the art show and like, showcase like, hey, if you buy frames, we're able to do so much more. And again, with this being like my third, fourth, fifth year here, it's kind of more like expected. And the parents are already kind of like, okay, when can I buy my frame? And that's one way of us to be able to raise money for us to be able to do more. And it's great because over the last couple of years, I've almost like tripled the amount of frames I purchase, and with that comes triple the amount of money. And I am able to buy, bigger supplies, more supplies, better quality supplies, paper. Paper alone is so expensive, especially if you want to get the good quality, thick paper. So I'm very thankful and blessed for the parents that I have that are very supportive in what we do. And again, we are about to go on winter break. And when we come back, we're going to start advertising and showcasing the theme of this year's show and start selling, the opportunity to start selling frames so we can start building our program for the rest of this year and going into next.
Yeah, and considering the school program, I'm really not familiar with how it works. So, as I understand, there is a program at the school that you should follow, a plan or something like this. How much freedom do you have with your vision, with your sculpture projects,
Yeah.
and teaching?
So with here in the States, we have like standards, right? And each one has kind of like a different like representation, different meaning, and like kind of like goals that you're trying to accomplish when it comes to like creating artwork, the historical part of artwork, the um, the reflection, and then the showcase, the gallery part of it. So there's like different categories when it comes to targeting art education. And, I've been very blessed where I've been in districts where they understand that we have the knowledge and the understanding of what it's like to create projects, to showcase, to reflect, and, self-assess all the things. And I really don't have a curriculum that I follow. A lot of the times what I do, so there are teachers that like to like plan in advance. I used to be like that, but just over time when it comes to like, the amount of supplies that we use or the skill level of my grades, because that changes every year. Like I've had to accommodate art projects every year. So like I don't like to do the same projects over again. But the biggest thing that I think that our district just wants to make sure is that we kind of have like a checkoff list, right? So like, for example, making sure that they understand how to like sketching or like how to understand the process of like painting, printmaking, things like that. But like the projects that we do can be anything as long as we're kind of hitting those checkoff points, those bullet points. And that's the beautiful thing about art, that with every project you do, you are able to hit a lot of those elements, those principles. And, with every project, I'm able to not only talk about a lot of the elements of design, principles of design, but there's usually like a self-reflection piece. There's also, you know, the display part where I'll put the artwork on display in the hallway or at the art show, and you know, advocating by posting and sharing it on social media just with one project. And we have been given the freedom to kind of explore that and kind of do with that as we please. And there are other districts though there that do have more of a set curriculum, and it kind of varies. It's different from state to state, even district to district. Districts that are around us also have like their programs set up a little differently. And as far as like funding too, that's also different from district to district. So it's really hard to kind of, I don't want to say collaborate with others, especially at the elementary level, because most of the time at the elementary, you are the only person at your school. I'm the only art teacher. We only have one music teacher. So it does make it kind of hard to like plan and collaborate with others, just because, you know, you have your own set of classroom challenges or like, you know, budget, you know, situations, funding, things like that. But I think the biggest thing is, you know, being inspired by others and getting those ideas and finding ways to kind of problem solve to implement those things into the classroom. So, I mean, I have the freedom to do a lot, and I think my staff, my school, and my parents know that I'm very passionate about what I do, and the kids love all the things that we do. So I'm in a very unique position where I am able to kind of create and explore on my own, and I have the space to do so in my classroom.
According to your experience, what is the difference? You teach the little ones, teenagers, also adults, I suppose. I saw some workshops. Yeah. What
Yes.
is the difference? How do they act on your classes?
So I mostly teach elementary, so kinder through fifth grade, ages 5 to about 9, 10 year olds. And on the side, I do private art lessons. Um, Over the summertime when we're on break, I do get more classes. I do art parties for all ages. I've done art classes for as young as like, you know, 5, 6 year olds to, you know, 16, 17 year olds. I do art workshops too as well for districts and other teachers, where I think the biggest thing for that varies from, you know, teaching littles to adults is just one of the biggest things that I'm known for on social media is how to do sculptures at the elementary level. Because usually when you think of sculpture, it's more of a middle school, upper class, secondary material, right? So to be able to incorporate that in the elementary room with the ages that we deal with, that is kind of one thing that I would go and help other art teachers with when I do these workshops or, you know, private art classes with adults. I've done I just did one recently where it was like how to use plaster at the elementary level, and it's not just the use of it, but it's also like, you know, the cleanup. A lot of people don't know that if you don't use it correctly, like it could mess up your sinks, things like that. And just being a tool and resource for these adults and art educators. And then the other thing too is, you know, as we get older, we don't create as much, right? So every now and then I do art parties for adults where it's just creating and just having fun. I did one recently with my family over Thanksgiving break where we made gingerbread houses, and I brought everything. I had, you know, the stuff ready to go, cut, prepared, where we just kind of glued and just hung out. And I think that is one thing that a lot of the parents and, you know, the friends I do art classes for the adults, that they like, that it's just like the enjoyment of just creating and just kind of more of like the hanging out environment. So art classes and art setups and, you know, workshops for different purposes and different experiences, and different takeaways too. So whether you're there to create or you're there to learn and, you know, incorporate into your classroom. And again, a lot of these people have never experienced with a lot of the sculpture materials and the workshops that I provide for. So providing that outlet for them to create and explore. Yeah, so I kind of do it all a little bit. You know, I'm able to create these classes. If you tell me kind of like the age range and what the intentions are and what you're wanting to create, or like a theme. Like I did an art party where it was an ice cream themed, and we create sculpture ice cream cones. So I'm able to really get creative after I kind of have that, you know, those the information to create these art parties, art workshops, sessions, things like that. So
And what role do social media play in your career?
I love. I know it's like hard to say because there is the stigma of being on social media, but I love Instagram. I really do. You know, when I was first teaching 10 years ago, I had an Instagram, but I wasn't really, you know, posting. It was just more like personal stuff, random things here and there. And, you know, I started following other art educators like Cassie Stevens, Caitlin Eddington, and, you know, they were kind of like the big two, like iconic art educators at the time, and just kind of learning, you know, what they were doing. And one of the biggest takeaways is that they were posting, you know, art project ideas or just kind of sharing behind the scenes, you know, in the classroom, and, you know, just the knowledge and the understanding, and also just being able to relate to someone. I was able to kind of, you know, build my Instagram from there. And, you know, as I got older and kind of started developing like who I was as an art educator, and, you know, I started posting more, I started connecting with other art educators, and, you know, we have a lot of conferences at the state level and at the national level that I started attending, and just being able to meet some of these teachers in person. We've met, what was it, 5, 6 years ago at a national art conference in New York, and we are like besties. We hang out with each other, and, you know, social media has not only allowed me to, you know, post, you know, what I'm doing in the classroom, but also just learning from other art educators. You know, the projects from the projects, from the tips and tricks to classroom management, behavior. Um, Gosh, I mean, I can go on and on, but Instagram has kind of become this platform that can be very inspiring, very educational. There's so many teachers out there that are posting videos of how to create these projects, or the relationships and the friendships, the connections. And, you know, it's taken me quite a bit of time to kind of build this platform. But right now, with the way that social media is going, it's so easy to grow if you know, if you kind of learn the few tips and tricks on like when it comes to posting and kind of following that algorithm. It's so easy to grow, it's so easy to connect with others. And I am very like I love Instagram, like the relationships that it's brought me, the opportunities that it's brought me. I've been able to work with companies that brands, and, you know, art supply companies, and things that I believe in, that I use in the classroom every day, and kind of showcase not only this, you know, organization or brand, but also like how I'm using it in the classroom too as well. So it's a the other downfall is that, you know, it is a lot of work to not only put yourself out there the way that I kind of do, but it's so rewarding. I mean, not only to be inspired and get ideas, but also the understanding that I'm might be helping somebody else that is struggling with, you know, art supplies or projects, whatever it may be. So it's kind of like this double like feeling that I'm getting from being able to help and helping others. So I really encourage, you know, new teachers that are not, you don't even have to be putting yourself out there, but just to have an Instagram account, I think it's better than other platforms like TikTok and Pinterest as far as like relevant artwork. And I just encourage teachers to be on social media. You don't have to post, but just again, kind of finding those people that inspire you, those ideas, things like that. It's so beneficial in so many ways. And if you're using it correctly, you're going to grow and inspire others. And I can go on and talk about Instagram. I love it so much.
I feel like you also could have a very successful YouTube channel if you start share these art lessons for children and their parents on how to make some fun sculptures
Yeah.
at home, because you have this sparkling energy and you're so passionate about what you are telling. I'm sure if,
Yes.
if you find time to do something like this, it would.
I, I used to be actually really good at posting on YouTube, but nowadays it's so like like when I get to work, I'm busy from the moment I get there to the moment I leave. Like I'm if I remember to record, that's great. But like I said, social media in general, whether what platform it is, it is a lot of work. And so, you're already working an 8-hour day. So making the time to make these videos, I do need to be better about like making videos for YouTube because that is another growing platform right now. But it is work, but it's just worth it. I love it. I feel like I've part of the reason why I am the educator that I am today is because of Instagram and the teachers that I follow and have learned from specifically have really been very beneficial to my personal as my own as a personal artist, as me growing, and as an art educator of me learning and growing too as well. So like I said, you don't have to post, but just really, and it doesn't matter what subject you're teaching because there's a lot of good like other subjects, other grade level content creators for those specific educational fields, and it's very beneficial.
Mhm.
I think I've learned more from Instagram than I have being in college. Honestly,
Mhm. Uh,
honestly.
what are your next artistic goals and dreams?
Oh man, so I again still kind of trying to grow my platform. I would like to be able to offer more and kind of making that as a part-time career and making more out of that. And then also like I've always dreamed of kind of like having like a studio space, but with um, just with everything financially, it is hard to kind of set up a business, a physical space like that. But the visions that I have, like I see all these art studios around the area, and there are different things that I like about them. There's a place over here in Austin where it's a clay studio, and I just love the aesthetic vibe. But it's only geared towards like ceramics and clay, and that's another thing about these studios that I see that is geared towards like one type of art making or like a specific age level. And like the way that I kind of like envision my like studio space is an opportunity for like all age levels from littles to adults, and giving the opportunity to offer everything from having a clay studio, having the pottery wheels on one side, to having like a little setup of like cardboard and sculpture materials, and then you have like the tables for like painting and constructing and fibers or whatever, and to be able to offer classes kind of like how you go to like a dance studio. You have like Wednesday where it's like tap dancing or like certain classes or hip hop, whatever, kind of offering something like that where it's like, okay, there's drawing classes, there's watercolor classes, there's clay classes, and or like a membership where like people can just come and create, because that is one thing that I've noticed over the couple of years of just me personally. Like one of the reasons why I wasn't able to create on my own outside of work and keep kind of those like inspirational juices flowing is because I didn't have the space set up in at home. And again, it is expensive to kind of start from not having anything and kind of building your art supplies and things like that. And by having a studio set up, I'm able to provide that space for you to come, and it doesn't have to be necessary class. It could just be a time frame where you come and explore, you know? So, and then like to have like a cool like coffee setup where it's like we're using mugs that we've made, and just I have a vision where it kind of incorporates a little bit of everything and everyone, but we'll see. We'll see. And then again, just as far as like me as an artist, just I think the biggest thing is just trying to focus more on just creating for my own like mental health and self care, and just kind of growing and kind of finding more of my artistic style. I feel like I'm kind of like all over the place right now as far as like building and sculptures and painting, and I don't have anything kind of like set in stone at like a style, you know? So kind of growing artistically in that way too as well.
Lastly, looking back, what would you tell to your younger self when you just started this artistic journey?
Ooh, that is a very hard question because there could be so many things, but I think the biggest thing, oh, I'm gonna try to describe, but I think the biggest thing, especially with how much I struggled and I was extremely behind, and I was told by teachers and just like people around me that like, you know, I wasn't going to essentially kind of be successful. I wasn't going to be able to learn like everybody else, and just being having these like negative um, comments being told to me throughout my educational career. If I can go back and tell myself something, it will probably just be that like your struggles right now are going to be like your purpose later on in life. Like, you know, the struggles that I'm feeling right now, the things I'm experiencing, everything that I'm going through, the comments are going to be the tools that are going to essentially help me grow into the person, the educator that I am today, and become that teacher that I needed when I was little. And to know that with my struggles, I'm able to kind of share my story with others and relate to other, you know, adults that do have learning disabilities, learning delays, and they're successful, and the opportunities that creating and making art has given me, and giving that space to others too as well. It will have to be that your struggles is going to be your purpose one day. So
Thank you so much. I hope, I wish you that your studio will be open because it definitely helps and inspires so many people and kids, and this is very important. Thank you so
well,
much for sharing.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a great time talking to you.
Thank you. Wish you a good day and inspire more children and more
Thank
people to
you.
create.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.